Hey everybody, in this video I'm going to walk through a pretty intricate puzzle that you can solve in the blueprints, which as you saw in the intro is going to unlock the Royal Scepter item, which gives you the power to choose a room color each day to appear more frequently. So I'll go through all of the steps as well as where you can find all the clues to solve this. However, technically, if all you really care about is just getting the scepter, I think you can probably skip a lot of the clue hunting part of this and just go straight for the solutions to speed things up a bit. Alright, so starting things off, as you saw, this puzzle begins in the chest room underground, and at this point, if you're wondering what the hell is that, I do have another video that I'll leave a link to in the description that covers how to get here and whatnot, so check that out. But to kick this puzzle off, we'll also need to bring with us another important item, which is the power hammer. That can be crafted by first drafting the workshop room back up in the house, and in there you'll need to combine 3 items using the workbench, the sledgehammer, the broken lever, as well as the battery. That recipe will get you the power hammer, which you can then use to break a variety of weak and cracked walls found throughout the game, one of which being found back down in that chest room. So once you've smashed the wall, you'll see the word castle, which is kind of 2 different hints in one. The first that we're going to talk about are the dashes next to each of the letters. So there are 6 3-letter words that you need to figure out, and you can find clues to the missing letters for each of them in a variety of different rooms throughout the house. The first one we'll look at is the kennel, which is a floor plan you need to first unlock using the drafting room. And there you'll find a picture of a cat with 2 vertical letters that match the C and A in castle, as well as a T at the bottom. So lining that up with the grid, we can place the T at the bottom for our first letter. Next up, we've got the locker room where there's a bunch of lockers that you can unlock with keys. Inside each one's going to have a random assortment of items. However, one of them is going to have this torn up math sheet with some red ink on it. This time, lining up the S in castle, we get 5 more letters that we can add to the grid. In the secret passage, there are some more letters that you can find behind the hidden door once you choose a book color. If you turn around and look at the back, you'll see the 2 O's that we've already added to the grid, as well as an additional D and R that can be added as well. The cloister has our next piece of the puzzle, which has the letters found on the statue in the middle of the room. If you're not aware, you can gain access by facing the statue and then interacting with the 2 hidden buttons that are found on each side column. Then taking a look at the bottom of the statue on the opposite side, you'll see 2 more letters to add, an X and a T. And then finally, the last letters can be found on a passport, which you'll get after opening up one of the safe deposit boxes in the vault. First, you will need a little bit of luck, though, to get deposit box key 149 as a random item found around the house. But once you have that and get access to the passport, you'll see the last 2 letters, I and D, which complete the puzzle and give us the final phrase, 6 add 6 tor lor et. So at this point, that's not really going to mean anything, so we'll come back to that in a little bit. However, the second clue that we get from the word castle is an action that we need to take inside the chess room, which is to perform the castle move. And if you're not aware, in chess, that's a special move that you can do where you kind of essentially swap positions with the rook and the king. So as you can see here, that's exactly what's happening, which then reveals the secret door. However, to do this, you don't like physically move the pieces on the board or anything. Instead, what you need to do is complete the chess puzzle twice, which again, I do have a video on my channel to do that if you need it. And once you complete it, you'll choose the rook power, and then you'll have to go on another day, complete the puzzle again, and then choose the king power. I believe you can do that vice versa, choosing the king first and then the rook. However, I would recommend choosing the king second, as you'll then have that power, which can be used for a later step, which I'll talk about in a bit. Alright, so now down into the secret tomb, which is going to lead into the next phase of this puzzle. So in the middle of the room, you've got this sarcophagus, and then on the outside border, there are these 8 statues that are each holding a puzzle box. So for the puzzle boxes, I think this is another one of those steps where you don't technically need to do it. It's just each one has a clue for solving the rest of the puzzle. So I'll show you all of those. However, if you do want to try and solve them and you're not familiar with how these work, I'll also include kind of the general rules for solving them too. Okay, so now you can see all 8 pieces of the poem there on the left side of the screen, and I'm starting a new day as now we need to complete some requirements based off of those hints. And ultimately what this is going to do is going to lift up that sarcophagus down in the chest tomb room, where there's going to be yet another puzzle that we need to solve, which will then lead to us getting the Key of Aries. So kind of breaking down the poem here, there are 3 main requirements that we need to complete in a single day. One, looking at the kind of the youth approaches with empty arms hint. Basically what we need to do is have an empty inventory, so no keys, no gems, no coins, no sledgehammer or tools or anything like that. The next thing that we need to do is draft an observatory, and as the poem says, a soul and cross of 5 stars align. We need to get that constellation in the observatory on a day when that's available, so that's the 5 stars. And then we need to get down into the tomb room and be right next to the sarcophagus on the sacred hour, which in this case ends up being 1:30 p.m. So basically, start a day. Don't pick up your allowance on the entry table if you have one. If you do have money, though, you can waste it in the chapel as an option. Don't pick up any items. If you have gems or keys, you'll need to spend those on doors and whatnot until you're completely empty. And then the more difficult or random part of it is going to be drafting the observatory on a day where you can get the 5-star constellation. So that part can be a little bit annoying depending on how many stars you have. It might take a couple days of doing that until you can get to that point. But once you have that, just head down into the tomb and kind of sit there and wait. Depending how quickly you do it, it can take up to like 30 minutes of in-game time until you finally hit 1:30 p.m. So here we finally see it rise up with a clock that's set to 1:30 p.m. This is the next puzzle that you need to solve, and doing that is going to get you the Key of Aries. This is also where we can finally use those 6 words from the castle puzzle, 6 add 6 tor lor et. This clue tells us how we can interact with the clock in order to open it up and reveal the key that's inside. So starting with CIX, if we take that as a Roman numeral, that is 109. So first off, we can set the clock to the time 109 and then hit the button. Next up, we've got add 6, so 109 plus 6 is 115, so we can then set the clock to that time and then hit the button again. And then tor lor et, you can learn basically translates to like counterclockwise east, and you can find that by searching for clues in the grades 4 and 8 classrooms. So if you follow that, rotate the clock counterclockwise from there until the minute hand lands on the word east. That gets you the time 12:26. Hit the button one more time. That will complete the puzzle and reveal the Key of Aries. All right, so once you have the Key of Aries, it will get removed from your inventory after you call it a day. However, the good news is that access to the clock is now permanent. So if you need to get the key again on a following day, all you have to do is run down here. You do have to repeat the sequence on the clock to open it up, but you can just grab the key whenever you need it. So if you haven't guessed, this is the key that's finally going to open up the chest that gets you the Royal Scepter, which is the big reward of all of this. However, we do still have a few more steps to do, the first of which is getting access to the Treasure Trove floor plan. So if you don't have that, you can find that down in the underpass, which leads to the inner sanctum with the lever that gives you access to room 46. On the way there, there's going to be a hallway on the left that you can go into just before the gate in the middle of the tunnel with a locked red door. In order to open up that, you're first going to have to draft the boiler room to divert power to the red box down on the bottom floor there. If you take a look at the light in the bottom right corner, it'll light up knowing you've done it correctly. That will open up that red door, so you can head back down there. Go through the door. There's going to be some stairs and whatnot that's going to lead you up to the second floor of the gear room. So you're going to have to then go back down to the first floor of the gear room and interact with the controls to rotate it until you get a pathway to the door on the other side where there's a gate. That's locked as well. If you put in the code May8, that'll unlock it, giving you access. And then you can find the floor plan to the treasure trove on the right side on the table. Okay, so we're almost there. Now that we have the Treasure Trove floor plan, we can go in the house, draft it, go inside. There's a chest, we can unlock it, and inside is not going to be the Royal Scepter. Instead, it's going to be these notes. Every time you draft it, it's going to be a different one. Eventually, you will see one, though, that says the true treasure of the trove is not in the house. So in order to get the scepter, you have to draft the Treasure Trove outside, which normally doesn't appear as an outdoor option. So I'll explain how that works in a second. However, I quickly want to go back to something I said at the beginning, where having the king power from the chess puzzle is really going to come in handy for one of the later steps. This is that step, as the Treasure Trove is a black colored floor plan, and you can use the king power to make black floor plans appear more often. So utilizing that power made this step way easier, as I could pretty much get the Treasure Trove right away every time I utilize that power at the beginning of a day. With that said, now how can you get the Treasure Trove to appear outside? First, that's going to require that you draft the shrine in the outdoor room, which gives you blessings depending on how many coins you give it. So with 30 coins, that's going to give you the blessing of the monk. And honestly, I just immediately killed a few days just trying over and over until the shrine popped up. But with that power, whatever room you call it a day in, it will then appear as an option in the outdoor room to draft the following day. So basically what you need to do is get the shrine, donate 30 coins, get blessing of the monk, then go draft the Treasure Trove room in the house, call it a day in there, and then the next day go to the outdoor room and the Treasure Trove will appear as an option to draft outside. All right, and that is the final step of all of this. So just make sure that you do run down and get the Key of Aries again, as you'll need that as you enter the Treasure Trove outside. You'll notice the chest is a little bit different. You can unlock that using that Key of Aries, and inside you'll see the Royal Scepter. So as you see the power of that, you'll probably be thinking to yourself it's the exact same thing as the King. So if that is your current power, you can redo the chess puzzle if you want and pick a different piece, and you'll essentially have two chess powers rather than one now. But this is now essentially a permanent item that you can have. So wrapping things up with a few additional callouts. So the item is permanent. You don't have to do this ever again. You'll always have it. However, the mechanics of that are a little nuanced. As you can see from the description, once you choose a color using the scepter, if you call it a day in a room of that same color, you'll keep the scepter in your inventory for the next day. However, the scepter's color will remain the same. It's not like you can choose a different color the next day. If it's blue, it's going to always be blue. That being said, though, if you end the day in a different colored room, you'll lose the scepter in your inventory, but it will reappear back in the Treasure Trove, so you just need to redraft that room the next day. It'll be sitting on the altar. You can pick it up, and then it will reset. So once you pick it up, you can choose a different color if you want to do that. Another interesting thing is I did have the king power, so I tried to double up and see how that worked. So I chose green with my scepter and orange with the king power. It seems like the king power took precedence, as I ended the day in a green room to match the scepter, and I didn't get it back in my inventory, so I'm assuming I needed to end the day in an orange room because the king overrid that. So just kind of an interesting mechanic there. But I'll kind of wrap things up here. Hopefully this video helped you out. You enjoyed it. Thanks for watching, and we will catch you in the next one. Bye.